Hi everyone, my name is Kendrick and welcome to Travel and Live Free. In this video, we're going to cover my country number 34 to visit every single country in the world, and that country is Colombia. Now, Colombia is one of my favorite countries in the world. As a matter of fact, right now, I put it as my number 2 favorite country of all time. And as of making this video, I've been to 89 countries around the world. So as you can see, I really put it high up there in one of the best places that anyone can travel to in the world. My trip to Colombia started when I crossed over from Ecuador and I was now in a city called Ipiales. I would be staying at Ipiales overnight before taking a long bus the next day, going from Ipiales to Bogota, which is the capital of Colombia. Now, the next day when I was in Ipiales, I decided to take a colectivo taxi to go to see Las Lajas, which is the famous church by the river here in Ipiales. Now, the one thing that I would say is that people in Colombia are really friendly, but the people in Ipiales are not friendly as the rest of the people in Colombia. So if you ever cross from Ecuador to Colombia, don't let the people's attitude in Ipiales fool you to thinking that Colombian people are not friendly. They're one of the friendliest people I've ever met in the world. They're just not friendly in the Ipiales city. With that being said, there were still some friendly people there, and the colectivo taxi, when I tried taking it back to Ipiales, they tried scamming me, and some Colombians actually fought for me and said, hey, don't scam him, that's not right. Afterwards, I went from the city of Ipiales and I took a bus to a city called Pasto, and from there, that's when I took the long bus ride going all the way to Bogota. Now, people say you shouldn't take the overnight bus ride from Pasto to Bogota because there's a lot of hijacking happening in Colombia, but actually when I took it, it was perfectly fine. I even left my bag inside the bus when we left to go eat, and no one stole my stuff, and it was perfectly fine. It also helps that I put a lock in my bag so that no one can pry it open and steal my stuff, obviously. Now, Colombia is a country that a lot of people don't speak English, so make sure that you have at least some basic Spanish when you go there. Survival Spanish is not hard to learn, so just learn it before you travel to Colombia. I did meet a guy inside the bus that works for American Airlines, and he spoke some English, so he helped me get around when we were in the bus, and I needed some questions answered. After a long, grueling 24-hour bus ride, I finally make it to Bogota, and then I took a taxi to go to my hotel. The taxi driver that I took was so funny. The first thing he says to me is, "Me gusta Jackie Chan," which is pretty much, I like Jackie Chan. And I soon found out that traveling in Colombia, there's not many Asian people. And the only Asian people that a lot of Colombians know is Jackie Chan. So you're gonna get a lot of Jackie Chan jokes if you're an Asian male traveling in Colombia. Now, when I was in Bogota, I decided to redeem some of my Starwood points at the time, which is now part of Marriott Bonvoy. And I think it was a category 1 or 2 hotel. And for as little as 2,000 to 3,000 points, I was able to get a free night stay in the hotels there. Now, I wanted to stay in Bogota for the next few days because I needed to apply for a new Canadian passport. So I ended up going to the Canadian Embassy actually and applying for a new Canadian passport because my passport was running out of pages. Now, when I went to the Canadian Embassy, they told me that I needed at most 30 days before I can pick up my passport. They were willing to let me keep my passport, but I had to go pick up my passport in the embassy 30 days from when I submitted my application for a new passport. So basically, after spending 3 days in Bogota just relaxing, I went to my next destination, which is a city called Villa de Leyva. Now, Villa de Leyva is a colonial city in Colombia, and it was during off-season, so there was no tourists there except for me. I managed to get a private room in a hostel for just $10 Canadian, and that included a full breakfast, like a big breakfast. And not only that, I got my own private washroom too. It was such a ridiculously cheap price. I also noticed that in Colombia, taxi drivers don't scam you, because I took a taxi when I was in the city of Villa de Leyva, and I think I only paid $4 Canadian for my taxi ride, which I felt like I was scamming the taxi driver actually. After exploring Villa de Leyva for that evening and also the next day, now my next destination after Villa de Leyva is a city called Barichara, and Barichara is one of those picturesque cities in Colombia that is a very nice place to take pictures. It's located in the province of Santander, which is the eastern side of Colombia, and it's not too far from the Venezuela border. So to get myself to Barichara, I took a bus from Villa de Leyva to a city called San Gil, and from San Gil I took another bus that took me from San Gil all the way to Barichara. And I basically just walked the rest of the way to go to my hostel. And this hostel experience was quite fun. I met this couple who live in this hostel, and the couple who lived there treated me really nicely. And 2 days later, because I stayed 2 nights in this hostel, they actually drove me to Chicamocha Canyon to go hang out with them. On my first full day in Barichara, I actually did the big hike in Barichara. So basically, the hike is called El Camino, and you hike all the way downhill until you go to this tiny town at the very bottom. Alright, so I'm in Barichara right now in Colombia. I'm in the Camino Real. As you can see, the trail is right here, and I'm working my way down. I'm actually traveling during slow season, so right now I'm the only person actually in the hostel I'm staying at. It's really rainy in Colombia right now, but from pure luck, right now actually it's very sunny here in Barichara, so I just lucked out. Prices are cheaper during slow season, and if you're lucky you can still go to the places, and once in a while there's a sunny day, and it doesn't rain all day, so there's always like a clear day or a clear time during the day where you can go hiking, take pictures and stuff, so it's pretty good. The Camino Real, it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete, and it's not too difficult. Afterwards I'm going to take the bus back to Barichara once I get to the bottom of the Camino Real. The Camino Real is actually made by Germans. It's not indigenous Colombians or the Spaniards, and I think that is what makes it a little bit neat. The area that I'm in right now apparently is more European descent than indigenous or Spaniard, although Spaniards did come from Europe, so yeah, you can just say European descent. Anyways, I'm gonna head down right now, and we'll get back to you once I finish the rest of this little hike I'm doing. Now the tiny town in the bottom is a weird town because I don't think they see tourists at all, let alone an Asian person. So everyone's giving me a weird look. But I managed to take the bus and head back up to Barichara and just spend the rest of the day just chatting with the people that own this hostel. The people that own this hostel are quite funny because they only get one Asian tourist per year, and I was a token Asian tourist for this year. And they said, oh, you're a little bit different from our typical Asian tourist a year. You actually talk to us. And I said, oh yeah, you know, a lot of Asian people, they're shy, they don't really interact with strangers, but I'm from Canada. I'm also pretty extroverted, so for me it's normal to approach a stranger, strike up a conversation with them. The next day, they took me to the Chicomocha Canyon, which is the second biggest canyon in the world, and they went and did hang gliding. While they were doing that, I was just taking some pictures, soaking in the view, and it was quite a wonderful experience. After we were done that, they dropped me off in the middle of the road, and now I was kind of like semi hitchhiking, waiting for a bus to pick me up and take me to Bucaramanga, which is my next destination. Now, when I got in the bus to go to Bucaramanga, there was a random Korean guy in the bus, which is so random because where do you see two Asians in Colombia? This is such a rare event because there's not many Asians in Colombia to begin with. Now, when I went to Bucaramanga, I only planned on staying overnight before taking the bus going to Medellin. And this was a big mistake because I actually really like Bucaramanga. It's this random city right on the east side of Colombia, and the weather is pretty tropical there, and I quite love it there. So lesson learned, don't have such a strict plan next time you travel, so you can stay and enjoy a city much longer if you want to. From there, I took a long bus ride to go all the way to Medellin. And one thing to keep in mind when you're taking buses in Colombia is that you're driving on windy roads, and it's very easy to feel motion sickness. I felt like vomiting so many times when I was taking those buses when I was in Colombia. And the only way I got over it is by eating hard candy. So have a hard candy ready with you if you decide to go on a long bus ride in Colombia. Before long, I was finally in the most popular city in Colombia, which is Medellin. It's famous because Pablo Escobar used to have the Medellin cartel there, but nowadays a lot of tourists just go there because it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I don't remember exactly how many days I stayed in Medellin, but I stayed there a good chunk of time. I think I stayed there for at least 1 week, just to relax and just interact with other backpackers and just really explore the city. I remember I played some soccer with the locals. I hanged out with just fellow backpackers. We just chatted in the dorm rooms. My first half of my time in Medellin, I spent in a city called El Poblado, which is more well-off side of Medellin. And afterwards, I went to the more quieter side, which is called Laureles, and I spent the next 3 days there. I actually like Laureles better because it was a quieter side of Colombia, but El Poblado was not bad as well. While I was in Medellin, I also used some of my Starwood points, which is now Marriott, like I said, to stay for 2 nights for free, because sometimes after backpacking for so long, you get really exhausted and you also just want to hold yourself up in a hotel and just watch movies and do nothing. I also booked an Airbnb for a few days there just to get caught up watching TV shows. I think at this point I was sick of backpacking. I just wanted a normal life at this point. Now at this time of my trip, I was counting how much money I had and I realized that I was burning money really quickly and I needed to slow down the amount of money I was burning. And the best way to do that is to cut one of the biggest expenses when you travel, which is accommodations. So I went to a website called Workaway and I secured myself a 2-week gig doing volunteer work at a hostel in a city called Guatape. And this was one of the best experiences of my life. Basically, I took a bus from Medellin to go to Guatape. I met 3 cool Americans in the bus station that I started chatting with and I actually hanged out with them a lot when I went to the hostel. Now, when I went to the hostel, I befriended the hostel owner. His name is Greg. Great guy. I love that guy a lot. I'll probably go back to Colombia again one day and visit him. I also made friends with a lot of volunteers and it was just such a wonderful experience. I got a chance to spend time in the kitchen cutting vegetables and washing dishes and hanging out with the locals, and they were teaching me some Spanish. It was such fun time to talk to them about their life in Colombia, about my life in Canada. And it was just one of those real authentic local experience that you can't get anywhere unless you do volunteer work abroad. Before long, I was helping serve the restaurant. And afterwards, I ended up working in the front desk where my job was to translate from English to Spanish to the Colombian guy working in the front desk. Now, my Spanish is survival at best, but I managed to get by actually, and it was fine. I also taught the owner of the hostel how to use trigger point therapy, which is what I do in my day job when I work as a personal trainer. So it was nice for me to teach him how to use a foam roller. And there's no foam rollers in this city, so we actually made a fake foam roller. We also used a lacrosse ball to help fix his shoulder, and I took him to the gym and we exercised there. I also ate at the same place over and over again, and I found this one place that sold this bandeja, which is this big Colombian dish, and it was really tasty, and the people there saw me there pretty much every day. And I made some friends in the hostel too. There's 2 volunteers that I was friends with when I was staying in the hostel, and I pretty much just hang out with them when I was there. I think it's in a weird angle now. We gotta fix it. There's a frog here. Holy shit. I didn't even see that. Yeah, it's good. Well, there's a boat there, so that looks like a good spot to try it. Do you see the boat right there? Yeah, so that looks like a good spot to, you know, start things off.
45 degrees, so you just like kind of twist slightly, right? So have the paddle like flush against perpendicular against the wall. Okay, I think we might have it.
Okay.
Distance, kind of keep safe distance with the paddle. Yeah, I think that's the best. But yeah, when they're at 90 degrees, we have like.
Oh, there we go, because I'm moving my torso now.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the paddle a little bit.
Oh, we're moving faster now.
Yeah.
I wasn't moving my torso, that's why.
Are you doing good on it? Woohoo! Yeah, now we're on a roll.
No, I didn't know I was moving.
Oh, I thought you did. Yeah, the paddles are completely.
Yeah, because I was just using my arms.
Oh.
There we go, we're moving really fast now.
Yeah, and then you just have it the paddle perpendicular to the water. Yeah, the paddle's not flush. Oh my gosh. Woohoo! You figured it out.
Before long, I get a notice from the Canadian Embassy in Bogota telling me that my Canadian passport is ready. And also, I had a tour in Venezuela that I needed to go to pretty soon, so I needed to leave Colombia rapidly. I also needed to get a visa to Brazil, and the fastest way to get a visa in Brazil is actually through Argentina. Now back then, Canadians, if they wanted to go to Argentina, they needed to get a visa ahead of time, and if they wanted to go to Brazil, they also needed to get a visa ahead of time. Nowadays, we can just go to those 2 countries, and I don't need to get a visa ahead of time. So basically, I went back to Bogota, get my Canadian passport, waited for my flight out of the country, going to Argentina. It was kind of sad for me to leave Colombia because it's one of my favorite countries I've ever been to. And I felt like I was leaving Colombia kind of abruptly because I needed to go to my next destination. Looking in hindsight, Colombia is definitely going to be a country that I will visit again. I ended my trip in Colombia by spending 3 more days in Bogota before going to Iguazu Falls in Argentina. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. And don't forget to sign up to the Travel and Live Free newsletter, where you can get a 10-step cheat sheet on how to travel around the world. You'll also get the latest tips and strategies on how to save money on travel for Canadians, how to go on a around the world adventure travel for Canadians, and how to use travel to get more freedom in your life as a Canadian. You can sign up for the newsletter in the description below. Until next time, I'll see you then.